The intent of this video is not to debate whether or not Final Fantasy XVI is a Final Fantasy game. That is ridiculous because it is a Final Fantasy game. I know there's a lot of people on Twitter, on social media, who have been decrying this game because they think for whatever reason that the things that they see in Final Fantasy XVI are not becoming of a Final Fantasy game. But guess what? Every Final Fantasy game is political. Every Final Fantasy game is dark. And every Final Fantasy game is going to evolve with their mechanics as we go along with new iterations. And if you can't deal with that, that's just unfortunate. And I'm sorry that you feel that way. But I'm 15 hours into this game, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Are there flaws? Absolutely. And in this video, I'm going to talk about things I love and things I find questionable. The footage you're going to see is going to be around 15 hours or so in, so there's going to be spoilers. So just keep that in mind. Starting off, let's talk about the combat. It is very Devil May Cry-esque, and at the very beginning, the combat can feel pretty basic, even though you do have some flexibility in regards to the actual skills you can use based off your icon. But around 4 hours in, you unlock your second icon. And that second icon really helps you open up your combat capabilities because it will allow you to stagger enemies pretty quickly. And then shortly after that, you'll get your third icon. And that third icon, just having that slot there means you can maximize your damage output. Every icon has 4 abilities, and you are able to switch between them as you choose. And when you're in combat and you're fighting against certain boss enemies or elite enemies, you're able to strategize the best path forward in terms of breaking the enemy down, staggering them, and then doing max damage. When this game starts to click, and it should click with you pretty quickly, this combat is fierce, and it is incredibly fast, and you will feel like a badass. It is an absolute treat to watch Clive decimate enemies while they're on the ground, practically unconscious. It's kind of unfair, but it's awesome. Most fights in this game, especially major ones, will not take you anything more than 5 minutes. And that, to me, is fantastic. Next up, let's talk about the active time lore system and good old Vivian Ninetales, who happens to be, in my opinion, one of the most important characters in Final Fantasy XVI. The active time lore system is fantastic for those of us who cannot play Final Fantasy XVI on consecutive days. Let's say life gets in the way. Let's say you're older. Let's say things just happen. And you finally pick this game back up after days of putting it down. And you get to a part where you're like, I have no idea who any of these characters are. And I have no idea where I'm going. If you press the touchpad, it'll open up the active time lore menu. And it will give you all the key information about what's going on in the current events that you find yourself in. Vivian Ninetales acts as the archivist for Final Fantasy XVI, and when you go find her in the hideaway, she's going to give you a breakdown of the current events and also everything that's happening within the realm. So clicking on the situation map, you're going to see everything that's actually occurred from the beginning of the game to the present time period. What's very interesting is that if you want to know more about what's happening within the region, what's happening with these conflicts, if you just want to see what's happening with Clive, if you want to recap, you can do so in the situation map. The other thing that State of the Realm does is that it gives a comprehensive grid of the grand cast. And this is very cool because as this game goes along, you're going to be introduced to a number of characters. And when you open up this menu, you are going to see every character that's ever been mentioned or talked about or seen. And what it's also going to do is that if you hover and click on a character, it's going to give you information on that character from their first on-screen introduction to what they're doing presently. I think that is awesome, especially for you out there who are thinking about making lore videos. Shout out to you. And, if you were thinking about struggling through all that research, you no longer have to because State of the Realm fills all of that in. So Vivian Ninetales is going to be your resource for all information regarding Final Fantasy XVI. All right, let's talk about something that I found questionable, and that were the side quests. Now, I believe the side quests are both good and bad. The good is that there's narrative weight behind these side quests. Every time you complete one of them, there is something of significance learned. But the bad part of these side quests is that a lot of them are mundane, they're repetitive, and some of them are just not fun. So I feel like the structure of these side quests could have been so much better. But here's the thing. I really feel like people should stick with them because there are some real gems, and the footage you're watching right now is one of those side quests. Instead of explaining it, I'm just going to let it play out.
You didn't seem all that worried. Something's not right here. I need to be careful.
But the wolf! It's going to eat me!
Not if I can help it. Stay back. I'll deal with this.
Don't let them get away. It's over.
No! You weren't supposed to kill Wolfie. You were supposed to die. Father will have you whipped for this. Bearers aren't supposed to win. They never win.
What is this? Your father said you were being attacked.
You're not supposed to talk. Stop looking at me like that. We were only having fun.
Having fun?
Why are you still speaking? Father will hear of this.
The wolf's work, no doubt. But it's not the wolf that's to blame. Someone needs to put an end to this before it happens again.
You, Brandy, come here this instant. How dare you frighten my son? That wolf was trained. You are the entertainment, nothing more.
Nor am I. You'll pay for what you've done.
See? I told you. He talks too much. It's not right. I don't like him, Father.
You're not the Branded I bought, are you? How dare you deceive me? Well, the sins of the slave are the sins of the master. Go! Summon the unlucky wretch you answer to.
That unlucky wretch would be the dame. I can summon her if you like. Though I doubt she would welcome the interruption.
You serve the dame. Why would a woman of her caliber...
You look afraid. Well, how do you think those bearers in the field felt? Can you imagine their fear? Their pain? From the look of you, I'd say you're starting to get an idea of the first. Now, if you need help with the second...
Father, he's scaring me.
You think to threaten us, Branded? The dame's pet or no, I will not abide such insolence.
Can't we just buy another hound? A bigger one, a better one.
Of course, my son. I'll have the villagers fetch us another. With jaws powerful enough to nip this Branded's head clean off his shoulders.
I'm wasting my time. But I can't just leave those bearers lying out there. They deserve a proper burial. That much I can do at least. How many bearers have lost their lives to this nobleman's sport?
All victims of the nobles' games. You must be Clive.
How do you know my name?
The Dame. I'm in her service, like yourself. Never gets any easier, burying the dead.
Is that what you're here to do?
The mistress has me see to it that none are left to the crows. Since you're here, can you give me a hand?
Gladly. Let's put them to rest.
May their burden finally be lifted. I take it you slew the nobleman's pet?
I did. Now I expect they'll find another soon enough. And when it gets here, more bearers will die. How can they think so little of sending us to the slaughter?
Simple. Because you are not them. Bearers are tools when they're needed, and toys when they're not. And if one breaks, well, you can always buy another. Still, such attitudes don't always go unpunished.
Is this your doing?
Of course not. Wolves kill. It's in their nature. Invite one into your home, he's gonna tear your throat out eventually. Same with bearers. Fed or not, they don't lack for fangs. What will folk do when they bite back, I wonder? The realm's less two murderous bastards, and I won't mourn the loss. Here. For their help.
You don't have to.
Take it. You never know. Our paths may cross again. Till then.
Not gonna lie, I cheered. I really did. When that little bastard and that nobleman got their comeuppance, I was super happy because I was not expecting it to go that way. I honestly thought they were just gonna get away with it and that maybe there would be another quest down the line, but I'm so happy that it happened the way it did. So, my opinion of it is, stick with the side quests. I really think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Moving on, let's talk about the boss fights in this game. So, thus far, I'm going to have to give Final Fantasy XVI an A. The boss fights in this game are so much fun. Even the icon fights, I have a good time with, because I feel like those, even though they're just really cinematic fights and very anime-ish, you get a lot of beam struggle type stuff, it's very funny. But for the most part, I have been thoroughly entertained and engaged in a lot of these fights. And I think that as you go along in the game, there are going to be some boss fights that really do challenge you because some of these long wind-ups that you see early on kind of go away because I believe the game expects you to be acclimated at that point to at least understand, like, you should dodge here, you should know what the tell is by now. So they kind of remove that weird hitch that a lot of bosses have where they kind of bring the swing back and they slowly bring it back towards you. That's kind of gone with some of the boss fights I've encountered later on in the game, and I've had a really good time, especially knowing that I'm far more capable. I've unlocked certain abilities that I feel, you know, really optimize combat and optimize the damage output. It's just something I enjoy. I just like the feel of it, and I love the fact that when you get bosses down to a certain bit of health, they go absolutely apeshit on you. And that stuff is so much fun to see because they'll go crazy. And they'll just start throwing out attacks. You're like, okay, maybe I'll get one dodge here. And they have some really crazy follow-up, something that you weren't expecting. But I also don't think any of the boss fights outstay their welcome because the combat is so fast, so fluid, that more than likely, you're going to finish a boss off within a few minutes. And I don't know about you, but that's really satisfying when you can overpower a creature or a monster that looks like they're going to just absolutely wreck you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next bosses are going to bring in terms of challenge and also spectacle. The last thing I want to discuss is the cutscenes. There are a lot of them, yes. Do I think they're annoying? No. Because honestly, with the way this game looks, I'm kind of glad I get a break. Because there are some moments in this game, especially when I'm in combat, where I feel like, why can't I just put my controller down and watch? Because there are some really cool things happening on the screen. That's me personally. But I don't understand the discourse about the cutscenes. I don't think they're intrusive. Honestly, I think that Square Enix wants to tell another cinematic experience. And by the way, Final Fantasy X, 12, 13, 15, and 7 Remake had a bunch of cutscenes. And some of them were fairly long. And I didn't see anyone really complaining about them. Like, these are really high quality, high production value cutscenes. And it allows us to kind of just soak all of this information in, and especially because you're new to this game. There's a story to tell. There are important things being told to the player. And I think that if you have to complain about something, I think the cutscenes in this game would probably be the one thing that you really shouldn't, because they're all high quality and they're all great. This whole notion of cutscenes being 75% of the game is bullshit, and I don't know why anyone would ever say that. That's a weird talking point because there's a lot of game here, a lot of combat, a lot of action. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to break with a nice cutscene that really explains a lot about this world, because it is brand new. And listen, if you want to target something in this game, I think you can take umbrage with the side quest and its structure and maybe the grim nature of the game. I feel like this game is devoid of humor at times. It feels a little bit too dark, a little bit too hopeless. But let's be honest, there are other things that you can look at in Final Fantasy XVI in terms of flaws rather than the cutscenes. I just feel like that's a weird thing to focus on. And the thing is, and I just really want to point this out, every Final Fantasy game is dark. It just so happens to be that Final Fantasy XVI is really pushing that darker tone and sticking with it. Not tiptoeing around it, not dancing around it, not trying to surprise you. It really is trying to tell you this dark, gritty tale. And it does an excellent job, in my opinion, of doing so. I've seen some of the complaints about, oh, it goes from this political thriller and just devolves into this story about magic. Guys, that's in every Final Fantasy game. I hate to say it. It feels like people aren't playing these games and paying attention. Because I know people played 7 and were like, oh, it's, there's a lot of this political conversation going around. Oh, what are you talking about when you talk about magic? Guys, Sephiroth is a biblically accurate angel. Like, what do you want, guys? Like, that's magical. Like, I don't understand. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that you can take targets with Final Fantasy 16, but so far, I really appreciate what they've done. The game is of a high quality. And I think that when it's all said and done, it's going to become so many people's favorite in the franchise. And hopefully, if it brings in new people to the franchise, they can go back and play the other games and appreciate the legacy of Final Fantasy. I just had to get that off my chest. I feel like this discourse is ridiculous. Now, that's going to do it for this video. If you happen to like the content, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. Leave a comment below if you played Final Fantasy 16 and let me know how your experience is going so far. I am Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and I'll talk to you next time.